Hello and welcome to the Fire in the Valley show. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by the Victoria Evans. Good afternoon to you. It is afternoon, I believe.
Yeah, we're in the same time zone. I'm super excited. I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Listen, it's great. You're going to have to bottom it out. So first of all, you're Canadian. You're in Portugal. I'm in Ireland.
Yes.
So we're literally multi-international, multi-continental here. It's all the best ways to live, right?
Oh yeah, totally. And it also confuses people as well, where it's like my time zone with my accent, and it's just all very exciting. So yeah.
Right. Oh, well, listen. Well, it's lovely to have you on the show. So first of all, Victoria, tell us, who are you? What do you do? And where are you originally from, let's say?
Yeah, so my name is Victoria. I basically call myself a science-based intuitive eating coach. Basically, I became an online coach through my own struggles with eating disorder recovery. I found the systems to be really, I really struggled. And I basically created this kind of program unintentionally to save my own life. And it kind of just took off from there. People started to ask me about it. And 2 years down the line, it's what I do full time now. And I get to travel the world and lived in Bali for 2.5 years, been all over Asia. Now I'm in Europe. I'm originally from Canada, as you mentioned, from a very small town, like 20,000, maybe if that population, north of Toronto, like 2.5 hours northeast of Toronto in Ontario. And that's a quick intro about me. I can go super deep on that, but
No, that's cool. Well, I mean, first of all, you talked about eating disorders. Can you describe that? What does
Mhm.
that actually mean if someone's trying to understand that?
Yeah, so I'm someone who, struggled my entire life with body image. I had this idea that if I was just skinnier and cuter, I would be loved and feel good and feel happy. Because my whole life I felt like an outsider. I felt like I didn't fit in, whether it be the fact that, I'm 5'10" now, but I swear I was like that my whole life. Like I always just stuck out, broader shoulders, more muscular. And I just thought, if I just looked younger and cuter, then people kind of would like me. And then as I kind of got a little bit older, that idea becomes really reinforced, especially if you've been socialized as a woman, that your body is basically kind of your worth to the world, right? You have to look really beautiful and look a certain way. And so I basically started struggling with eating disorders around age 12, 13. This is really when my, anxiety, my depression really kicked off. And again, this idea that if I just looked a certain way, then I would be
Hmm.
happy. And so that actually kicked off at age 12, bulimia. So that's like, I was forcing myself to purge basically. And that was over just about a 10-year battle with bulimia. And then on and off, I was struggling with binge eating as well. And then later on into my late teens, early 20s, I struggled with anorexia. So I was not eating a lot of food, lost an insane amount of weight. I was addicted to exercise, exercising like 4 or 5 hours a day.
Hmm.
Um, and my hair was falling out. I'd lost my period, amenorrhea. Like I was a complete mess. And, I really found myself having this moment of like, I was in this body that I'd always dreamed of, and yet it was nothing like I'd ever wanted it to be. Like I had the abs, I had the everything that I thought I should look like, and yet I had never been unhappier. So it was a very confusing, difficult time in my life to kind of reach this goal of looking what I thought was meant to be happy and never being so miserable or so empty.
What were you looking for at that time? Do you know?
I was so desperate to feel loved and to feel seen. And I thought the way to do that was through achieving perfection. I thought if I looked more perfect and acted more perfect and was more perfect, then people would like me more. And I thought that because I wasn't perfect, that's what was driving the disconnection. Now, in hindsight, realizing that it's perfection, the seeking of perfection that drives the disconnection. And when we see our flaws in other people, when we see ourselves represented, through social media or even with our friends, we connect with that. We connect with imperfections. And so the irony that I was striving my entire life to look perfect while keeping everyone at arm's length because I was, trying so hard to look a certain way. Bless you.
Thank you. It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I'm just noticing there about how you talked about that connection. I mean, just quickly whittle us where you are today. I mean, are you connected with your true self? I mean, are you one and the same of who you are and who you truly are? Is that gap shut
Mhm.
now, or what stage are you at in your life?
I would say for me, it's the closest it's ever been to feeling connected to myself. I wouldn't say it's 100% by any stretch of the imagination. And, that's one of the difficult things about traveling the world. I've just been here for about a month now, is creating community and creating connection. And so that's something I have to be super intentional about, because I am very much an introvert. I like to do my own thing. I like to travel on my own. And it can be very easy for me to live in a space of just doing all my own, going different places. I just was in Porto for the weekend by myself. So I'm someone who has to very actively be like, okay, I'm going to go out to connect with people, to do the things. And so I'm the closest I've ever been. I would not say it's perfect. I definitely get lonely. I definitely struggle. But at the same time, I'm very aware that fixing my body is not the solution, because it was never the problem. So I have a completely different mindset around connection and vulnerability and what it means to kind of show up and be authentic. And if someone doesn't like me or doesn't like that, that just means they're not for me, not that I'm broken or something wrong with me. So I'd say I've had a lot of big shifts around kind of what it means to connect, the purpose of connection. And, what I always say to the clients, like, when we say we want to lose weight, what we really mean is we want to feel loved and connected and worthy and good enough. And none of that is going to come from achieving a certain body size.
Mm. Wow, very, very powerful. Um, and just take us back. So, I mean, you talked there about sort of really being quite a young age and purging, as you put it there, and that sort of bulimia. I mean, how was that
Mhm.
serving you at that time? What were you seeking? Do you know?
Yeah. So at that time, I had no idea how to deal with the amount of pain that was going on inside of me. I was so depressed. I was so unhappy. And, my parents had just divorced. My dad had been having affairs. It was my 12th birthday, actually, that my sister had found out that they were having an affair, and the whole thing kind of blew up. And I didn't know how to feel how I was feeling. I didn't know how to process how I was feeling. I was never taught how to feel my feelings. And I had a lot of anger, I had a lot of sadness. And the only way I knew to deal with that was to eat a lot of food to completely numb out and then purge it all. Because for me, purging was like this violent act, basically, of getting everything out of your system: emotions, anger, frustration, everything, and then literally just flushing it away and pretending you were fine the whole time. It's like a very secretive, behind the scenes. You can appear totally perfect on the outside, and on the inside, you can feel completely broken, but no one has to know, because you're able to keep all your emotions, everything you're feeling, kind of tucked away behind this secret disease of bulimia. So it, in weird way, it served a purpose in the sense of it got me to where I am now. It almost killed me, and it was horrible, and I would never wish it upon anyone. But I don't think that looking at anything as like regret is beneficial. I think it's what we did at the time to keep us alive. It was the best I could do at that time with the tools I had available to me. If I would have had more help, if I had more support, maybe things would have been different. But it's kind of where I'm at now. And as someone who struggles with bulimia, like, oh my gosh, please get help. It's such a horrible disease, and it can take over your entire life. And it doesn't bring you any further forward in your life. It's like keeps you very stuck. It keeps you very just feeling empty in every sense of the word. And so, yeah, it was horrible. It was on and off, yeah, for 10 years. And it really destroyed me in so many ways. Yeah.
Would you describe that side of it? I mean, is that a symptom or is it a cause? Do you think? I mean, 'cause I know for myself, I've had two bouts of depression in my life, and I describe it generally more as it's a symptom. You don't catch depression. It's as a
Yeah.
result of something else. I mean, is that the
Mhm.
case? Do you think with eating disorders, there's a trigger a way back wherever, which
Mhm.
then causes this, and then the sort of the outcome or the symptom or the sort of the surface level thing then results as this. So does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know if my answer is going to respond in the way that maybe that you're looking for, but the way I kind of look at it was kind of like the culmination. It was like the perfect storm of things.
Hmm.
It was like I didn't know how to process my emotions. Things in my whole world felt so out of control outside of me. Like I couldn't figure anything out. I couldn't keep anything kind of under control, as it were. And so my control of food was what I felt I had control over. And so bulimia with the kind of variables of like unstable home life, trying to like feeling disconnected from my friends, from my school, from everything. Yeah, the emotions, trying to look perfect in a society that tells us you want to look a certain way. It was kind of like that was the sum of basically of kind of what it looked like. That's the kind of the way that I kind of look at it. Other people may say it is a symptom. I kind of looked at it as, you know, a logical conclusion to all the variables that were kind of adding up in my life, the kind of the logical sum, as it were. Some people that might be they are drinking. Some people it might be they are, you know, gambling. Some people might be other things. For me, that was the way that that it was available to me at that time to try to deal with all the things going on in my life that I had no idea how to process them.
Mm. Tell me, what was mini Victoria like? What was she? What sort of a person?
She makes it's, I was such a bubbly, my parents called me a spirited child. They they had a parenting book called How to Parent Your Spirited Child, because I would throw tantrums. I was very colicky as a baby. I had a lot of big emotions, and again, I did not know how to deal with them. Like my dad always had a temper. My mom just like never really showed how she was feeling. My older sister was very sensitive. My younger sister was just like a bit of a troublemaker. So I never wanted to be the burden in the family because I saw how other people in my life felt in my tiny brain like they were. And so I was always the goofy one, trying to be the peacemaker, trying to make everyone laugh. So I developed a very sarcastic personality to kind of deal with a lot of that pain. And yeah, so growing up, I had a very kind of vibrant, goofy, silly personality. As I got older, that was very much to cover up a lot of the pain, and a lot of the sadness that I felt inside. And then that part of myself really kind of just became very dark. So outwardly, I, you know, pretended everything was great, everything was wonderful. I did my hair perfectly, my makeup perfect, everything. But inside, it was like this deep sorrow, this deep unhappiness. So it was kind of like I felt pretty matched with my younger self, like in terms of what I was outwardly showing, how I was inwardly feeling, till I was like maybe like 8 or 9. And then from there was definitely kind of a bit of a divergence in terms of like trying to appear a certain way, but feeling completely differently.
Mm. And the person you are today, do you
Mhm.
think you've ever been that person before in your life? Have you ever had that chance to be that free and that just allowance to be you and without outside influence?
Honestly, I don't, in terms of how I feel about life, my optimism, my excitement for life, that is something I maybe felt when I was a young child. But even one of my earliest memories was like imagining that I was going to be like the ballerinas when I was taking dance class when I was 5, you know, and I was going to look like them one day. So from a very early age, my kind of desire, my aspirations were tainted a little bit by this idea of like looking a certain way. So when I
Mm.
remove that now, and kind of the remainder is just my desire to just live and explore and like just experience new things. It'd be food or going to a performance or meeting new people. And so this kind of zest for life without any of the weight of expectations of things that I should be or I shouldn't be, things that you know, we're all taught we should have the house or we should have the car, which is amazing if that's what you truly want, you know, but oftentimes it's not what we actually want. It's the feeling behind it that we're craving. So like I craved connection and I thought that was through a body. I craved feeling seen. I thought that meant having a Fortune 500 company job. So I was like working corporate for several years. And so realizing like what was the actual feeling that was, you know, just below the surface of that goal or that aspiration. And then that's how I live my life now. Instead of you know, striving for the external achievement, it's like, what was the internal feeling that's kind of, you know, a little bit below that.
Mm. Oh wow. So bring us forward. So you do a lot. You have, everything from podcasting, your coaching. There's so much going on there. So you put your podcast there. So weighing in on happy. That's it seems to be going very well. So give us an overview on that and tell us. Really what you do today. What's really sort of what service do you offer?
Yeah. So I have my podcast, Weighing on Happy. I love it. So basically, the theme is kind of we weigh in all the things that make us happy that don't include weight. And so I talk with so many cool people between, you know, body confidence and body acceptance to feminism to women feeling empowered in their finances. It's really this like beautiful space, intuitive eating disorder recovery, all the kind of things that basically I wish my younger self would have had access to accelerate her to get to the point where I am today. And so I love it. I literally Googled a couple of years ago. I was like, how do you start a podcast? And I was like playing with it. And so I always think it's cool how you can go from having no idea how to do something and maybe even having some fear, some ego around not doing it right, but, just taking imperfect, messy action. And then here I am, a few years later with an awesome podcast, and I get to speak with people all over the world and just have this sense of connection. And it's really beautiful. So yeah, I had the podcast. And then today I currently offer online coaching programs. So it's so cool. I get to work with people all over the world, which is just amazing. So tonight I have a call at 1 a.m. because of the time zone difference, but that's okay. It doesn't happen that often in one of my group programs. But yeah, basically, it's a 90-day program that I currently offer. It's for women who are just so tired of feeling like they're waiting to start living their life. They're tired of feeling like they're self-sabotaging all the time, not understanding that self-sabotage is actually self-protection once you address the unmet need, understanding what's actually going on in their brain, actually understanding what's going on in their body. So removing all that shame and really, replacing it with kind of educational empowerment, because I call myself science-based intuitive eating coach. And basically is we want to understand the why behind why we're doing what we're doing, because once we understand why, then we're actually able to take positive action steps forward. If we're living in a space of shame and frustration, that prevents action, right? It's a lot of blaming, a lot of victim, and it's just not a good place to be. So I currently offer that right now, which is like one of my favorite things. I have a course as well. Someone wants something a little bit not as intimate one-on-one, but they want still support as well. I have a course, and then I have some different coaching programs that are group. So that's kind of my different array of offerings right now. And then right now, as I mentioned, I'm in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm actually looking at PhD programs right now for psychology. So that might be my next move. So to continue to do coaching and the podcast, and then working to get my PhD on the side. So yeah.
Wow, busy person. Well, to use your own words, what do you truly want?
I truly want, it's not so much a thing, I guess I could say. I truly want freedom. For me, that's just always been the thing. I wanted to have the freedom to connect with people, the freedom to eat what I want, the freedom to move my body in a way that I want, whether it be going dancing or walking around the city or whatever. Freedom to travel the world, freedom. I just like to have this abundance feeling in my life instead of scarcity. Because I live so much of my life and, I don't have enough of this, or I don't look enough like this, or I need to get this house, or everything was just so controlled and so insecure. And, the more control we need, it just means that's the more insecure we are, basically. And so when we're able to release a lot of that control and replace a lot of that with just this kind of inner sense of knowing it's going to be okay. I trust myself. I've got my own back, and I feel secure in that. I feel secure in the connections I've made with people. I feel secure in my ability to show up to a new city by myself and meet people and start a whole new life, which is a pretty cool place to be when you have that sense of self-trust. And that's something that, when it comes with freedom, if you trust yourself, and you can really kind of do anything you want, kind of piggybacking off of that, also having a sense of emotional freedom. So if I'm no longer fearing negative emotions, if I'm no longer fearing how I'm going to feel about myself if something doesn't work out, there's literally nothing I can't do, because I will never look at something as oh, I failed, I messed up, I'm horrible, what am I doing? It's okay, cool. I can feel feelings of feeling upset about that. That's sad that didn't work out, but not making it mean something about me. So hopefully that kind of made sense, but having the emotional freedom as well, I guess for me, is another way that I look at freedom. Yeah.
Do you care? And I'm curious, because you talk about connection, you talk about control, and then you use freedom as well. I mean, I suppose maybe it's my perception of connection, but connection, I would almost, for me anyway, it might suggest the opposite of freedom. It might suggest connection is has a weight, right? It's not that
Mm.
it's freeing, but it allows a deeper connection. But I don't know if I would describe it as free, but maybe that's just my perception of the word.
I think for me, when I look at connection, I look at connection to people. And connection is one of those base human desires. We are always seeking connection. Like we are a social species. You're very much driven by oxytocin, which is the neurotransmitter for bonding, connection, feeling a part of a group. If I feel like I am not in a group, if I feel like maybe I think my body is not the way it should look, then I'm basically going to be freaking out. My more primitive brain is going to be freaking out and basically trying to do everything it can to get itself back into this feeling of being in a tribe. Because, thousands of years ago, if you weren't in the tribe, we'd be eaten by the lion. So our brain is wired to want to assimilate, want to connect, want to feel like it's a part of the group. And so if we are going after connection about the wrong way, so trying to do it through being perfect, right, we're not actually going to ever achieve connection, but our brain is always going to be in a state of fear. So if I'm understanding that I can actually truly connect with people through imperfection, through these meaningful kind of relationships, then all of a sudden my brain no longer thinks that I've been kicked out of the tribe and there's a threat to my survival. If my brain, if my body feels a sense of safety in its connections, it feels like it's in its tribe, whether it be my friends from around the world, back in Canada, my clients, whatever, I have this internal sense of connection and safety. So it's kind of like, if you want to even think about it almost like a Maslow hierarchy of needs, like I have that like check, like feeling of connection, bonding, right? Belonging, sorry. From there, it's like I'm able to kind of get to a different part of my brain where I'm no longer seeking that kind of primitive desires. I can go and have the freedom to travel the world because I'm not falsely looking for a sense of, safety through kind of these looking a certain way or getting the body or getting the career or whatever, because what I'm seeking is connection to my peers. But I'm kind of going about it in maybe not the right way. I don't know if
Hmm.
that explained it better.
It does, but then I'm curious, I suppose, about you describe yourself as quite introverted as well.
Mhm.
So connection and introvert, how do those two
Yeah,
marry together?
very intentionally. I realized my whole life I'm an introvert in the sense that I recharge on my own, but it also means I have to be around the right type of person. I thought that there was something like very wrong with me if I didn't want to be around personalities who were like super loud and super like off the walls. I was like, oh man, like something's weird about me. Like I can't be in those social settings where people are like super, extroverted and out there. And I can for small periods of time, but I'm also aware that I love having deep, meaningful conversations. I like, exploring new cities. I like having those moments of silence when you're with someone and just kind of having some introspection and like not needing to fill every gap of space in the conversation. So, as well as, for me, I have my what it means for me to kind of live a life worth living in terms of my goals, my aspirations, how I want to feel every day. That doesn't always match up with other people depending on where they're at in their journey, depending on what they wanted of life. So if I want to connect with someone and maybe they're like, one of like super crazy entrepreneur, which again, if this is you, totally fine. It's just not me, working like 80 hours a week, all about the grind and the hustle, like sacrifice everything so that your business succeeds. Amazing, super happy for you. But like, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be in your circle. So for me, like connection as an introvert meant finding what people I connect with, knowing I need time to recharge. So maybe going on a 5-day getaway with someone, with a group of people, I could maybe do that, but I also be very aware that I'm like, I need to schedule this time to like recharge and reflect on myself. Maybe I need to go on a walk this day by myself. So it's more kind of having a better understanding of yourself when you're introverted, as well as being very understanding of like, who are you going to have in your circle?
Makes sense. It's a very interesting, as you say, and I like the fact that it's intentional. I think that's
Mhm.
very positive and the recharge side of it. And then for you, in terms of you know, presenting, do you think people get you straight away, or is it something? Are you more of a, some people grow on you to understand you? Because introverts can struggle a bit with that sometimes, can't they? Because the people don't always get
Mhm.
them. They're like, is she being purposely quiet, or is she just not shy, or what is it, right? Because when there's not
Yeah.
much to work off, it's people can misunderstand you. Did you find that at all, or do people get you generally?
It's funny because people almost always assume I'm an extrovert and then, but I'm not, because I am able to kind of surface level be very engaging with people, be very like happy and upbeat. which is probably some remnants of some people pleasing and perfectionism from long ago. But people are always surprised to hear them introverted, because I have a very, I can have a very outgoing personality when I want to have an outgoing personality. So depends on the group of people I'm with. So if I'm meeting new people, my personality will likely be outgoing. Once I get to know people, it's probably going to reel in a little bit and be a bit more chill. So that always kind of confuses people a little bit about me. But with that said, I'm happy to meet all new types of people, but people who I'm actually going to maybe hang out with a second or a third time are going to be people that I feel a true connection with, and that would probably have maybe a personality a bit closer to my own. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, it does. And I'm curious because you changed tenses there. You know, the my side, the my was the outgoing, the extrovert side, and then but the I side. So I love language, so I end up sort of
yeah.
listening for that. The I side seems to be the introvert. So it's almost like two different parts of you are introvert and extrovert. It's like uh, a lot of it, just to put it into context, you know, I suppose we refer to ourselves typically as me, myself, and I. They're the three majors. It's just interesting. Part of you enjoys the outgoing part of it, and part of you loves the sort of, you know, the retreat, the introvert, the self-preservation, the self-growth. So just curious, you know, and because your language is also very kinesthetic. Is that something you're aware of? Is that something you sort of it just comes across very feeling and very, you know, touch-based language? Does that make sense?
Say more. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you mean.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, because I suppose we typically, again, we're led by either kinesthetic, visual, or auditory. So we're either typically feeling, and that's a lot of your language comes across as I feel this, and
Yeah.
you know, I touch things, I feel, you know, and what it is visually is I see, and you know, auditory is I hear what you're saying, you know. So, but your language seems to be very, very sort of kinesthetically based, which is interesting. I find, especially given the background and the area and the field you're in. Does that make sense? Have I clarified a little bit better?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. That is something I've been very intentional about, because I spend so much of my life completely disconnected from how I feel. And so for me as well, like, it's not saying like I am angry. It's like I feel angry, right? You're not your emotion. You're not that part, right? It's like you're almost like a level above it, like bird's eye view, like I feel this thing. So you're kind of observing it. So my language is intentional because for me, I mean, human beings are not like thinking beings, we're feeling beings. And so a lot of the time we try to, and I'm still guilty of this, I'll, you know, intellectualize things instead of feeling it. So I very consciously look at like, how am I actually feel about this conversation? How do I actually feel about this thing, as a way to connect myself to myself after years of just feeling like a bit of a floating head, as it were.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that sort of feeling or sensing as to who you truly are, as you say, I think it's extremely powerful. You know, once you get past the thinking brain or the knowing brain, the ego is, you know, depending on how you look at it. Um, where's your superpower? Where do we find Victoria in her flow state, being of most connected, most service, whatever your sort of superpower region is, do you think?
Mm. I have an immense capacity to hold space and empathize with people, which is why I love coaching so much, because it's not so much of like, oh, that sucks that you're there. It's like, I know how that feels, right? Like, I've been there. I felt that pain. I felt that hardship. I know how scary it can feel. And to be able to hold space for people and just make them feel seen and heard in whatever area they're like, maybe it is me doing work, maybe it's just a conversation with a friend or even someone on the street or in an Uber, you know, like just being able to really hold space for people, in a way that I always wanted to have space held for me. Right. I think we always, you know, in some way or another, sometimes we become who we wanted to be, you know, what we wanted to have, I guess, as it were, kind of growing up. And so because I never felt heard or seen or understood, my superpower now is making sure that other people don't feel left out. They feel seen, they feel heard. And that has been so liberating for me to connect with people, but also connecting through that vulnerability. So it's like I lead with like being super open and sharing my story, and then other people feel safe to share theirs and talk to me, which is just so cool, and I just love it so much.
Is that a teaching style you like? Because I mean, you talk about sort of almost, leading by example and demonstrating
Mhm.
what you've been through or how you've achieved certain things? Is that a preferred style for you, that actually then it sort of lowers the boundaries for people, and if people can resonate with you?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, my approach is very multifaceted, but one of the biggest things is if we ever want to do any sense of healing, we have to feel safe within our own body. Like if our brain tells us that like, there's a lion coming or being chased by a tiger, like we're in that fight or flight, that sympathetic state, we feel defensive or feel like we're under attack, whether it be, someone's talking at us like they're better than us, or whether, someone's just never been through what you've been there through and you think that they can't understand. So you're kind of holding back. So if we feel safe to be ourselves, if we feel safe to, share what we're going through, then that's when we can go to healing. Like if we're able to, our brain again feels like we're safe, feels we feel like understood, we're dropping our defenses, we're opening up, we're getting deep more into that kind of subconscious brain, things that maybe we've kept guarded for a long time, working through different stories, limiting beliefs about ourselves, things that maybe we've kept hidden and locked up for so long because we never felt like anyone could understand us. So,
Hmm.
yeah, hopefully
And
that made
that's, I mean, do you understand yourself now, do you think, or is that an ongoing thing, that sort of unveiling yourself and what makes you tick, or what stage are you at in your own development?
It reminded me of a question I was asked on a podcast the other day where it was like, if you were a type of food, what would you be? And then for some reason, I thought of Shrek when he's like, ogres are like onions. And he's like, we have lots of layers. And so I'm like, I feel like I'm an onion. So like, I feel like I'm just constantly like Shrek, peeling back these like layers of myself and like constantly learning more about myself. And I think it's ongoing, right? I think, I spent much of my life just like piling on layers of who I should be and what I'm supposed to do. And it's been this journey of like peeling them back and kind of redefining what it means to be Victoria, what she actually wants versus what she thinks she should want, and kind of getting closer and closer and closer. But also knowing, depending who's in your circle, depending who's around you, depending what's going on in your life, you might be adding some layers on without knowing it. And I think that's just human. We want to kind of fit into our environment and connect, right? Because how our brain works. So being conscious of like, what am I picking up from people around me? Do I want to be picking this up? Am I becoming the person I want to become? I forget what it's like, become the average of what is it? Like the 8 people you spend the most time with or something like that. I forget the number. But, looking at your circle, and it's like, are the people around me the people that I feel truly reflect me or who I think I should be or want to be? And like having those kind of introspective conversations with yourself, and making sure that you are showing up authentically as you, whatever that means, and digging into that and then peeling back layers and layers of what we've been kind of conditioned to believe, we should be or have to be or all that kind of stuff.
Very, very powerful. Tell me as well, what's been a significant turning point or points for you in your life? I mean, what was the change from taking that sort of,
Mhm.
God forbid that, that 12-year-old child that, felt that anxiety, felt the tension, the depression, and felt all that to who you are today? I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's always an important message to get out there, right?
Yeah.
It can be a slow moving train, but ultimately it's possible. But what have been key points for
Mhm.
you, and what's the lessons you learned maybe?
Mhm. I would say one of the biggest moments I had was when I was living in Montreal and I was working for a big company there. And I was really at my worst point of struggling with anorexia. And I remember I had woken up at like 2 a.m. and I had a handful of trail mix. Like I stumbled out of my bed. I'd gone to bed at like 1 because I didn't sleep because I was so anxious at this time. Stumbled out of my bed, went to the kitchen, had a handful of trail mix, half asleep. I didn't have anything in my kitchen. I had like coffee and some trail mix. And I remember just kind of waking up and like having someone like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? Like I had all this trail mix, like I'm not allowed to have this trail mix. And literally having a full-blown panic attack, crying on the floor in a ball, like 2 a.m., not knowing what to do because all I wanted to do was go back to sleep. But I knew there was nothing inside me that was going to allow me to go back to sleep. So I crawled to the closet and I pulled on my running clothes. And I went outside, I started running the streets of Montreal, like it's like 2:30, 3 a.m. Um, and I decided like 30 kilometers was like an adequate punishment for a handful of trail mix. So and the confusing thing about this is you would talk to some people, like the lifestyle I was living was like, I'm going to run 30 kilometers. Some people would praise me for that. Like, oh my God, you're such an athlete. You're so strong, not understanding what the driving force is behind it. So just as kind of a little side note here, never praise people for their bodies, never praise people for like, some external achievements, because sometimes you don't know what's kind of the driver behind it. Like for me, the body type I achieved, the before and the after photos that were being posted was not coming from a place of empowerment, it's coming from a place of sickness. And yet I basically had joined this 12-week weight loss guaranteed program from an Instagram influencer. And I was posted all over her social media with millions of followers, my before and my after photos, and getting all this attention. And, no one realizing that the girl in the after photo was like so much more unhappy, so much more unhealthy than the girl in the before photo who, by societal standards was less healthy and should be less happy. So anyways, I was running and remember like I was crying and the headlights of the cars were like lighting up my face as I was crying, and getting eventually to the top of Mount Royal in Montreal, and the sun was just starting to rise. And I just had this like moment, like a goosebump kind of moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm going to kill myself. Like, I can't do this. My hair was falling out. My period was gone. I was going on 30-kilometer runs at 3 a.m. Like my life felt so out of control. And one of the things that I think is like, we often think that if we just got to a certain place or we had a certain body, then we would have freedom. But we're never going to be free by implementing control. And I was just trying to add on more and more layers of control and food rules and restrictions to get to a place where I felt like freedom and happiness. And you can't keep adding on layers and of control to get to freedom. And so there I was standing at the top of the mountain, and the sun was rising, and I just had this like very kind of deep moment where I was like, I can't do this on my own. Like, I can't beat this thing on my own. I'm at this point that I've, since I was 5 years old, I wanted to look the way I look, and here I am, and it's not making me happier. I'm not healthy. I'm very sick, in fact, but still getting all this external attention. Thinking that was the connection I was always seeking. So I was like this kind of empty connection. And so this moment where I was like, hey, I need to do something, like something needs to change here because I'm on a downward spiral right now. And so I very consciously decided, I'm like, okay, like something needs to change. Like I want to live, like I want to choose life. And so I ran down the hill. And when I got home, I called an eating disorder hotline in Montreal. And I talked to this lady on the phone, like bawling for hours and hours, called in sick to work, and just like shared everything with her. And like the first time in my life, just like broke open my soul and just like shared everything. And it was so scary. It was so scary being vulnerable and open, but it was also it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders to no longer be carrying everything, my entire, like all my pain on my soul, everything on my back, like pain shared is pain divided. Right. And so it was horribly scary. The next day, I definitely had a vulnerability hangover where I was like, oh my God, did I really share all those things? But I think it's pretty normal when we are very vulnerable to have that like after like, but that's okay. The more we start to share, the more we feel more comfortable with it. But that kind of really kicked off my recovery journey, and starting to do this work and kind of find myself again after years of basically just abandoning myself.
Gosh, it's amazing the things we'll put ourselves through, isn't it? That thing to realize or to wake ourselves up. I mean, do you think, does the body ultimately know, or the mind ultimately knows, and just the conscious mind goes off on this little detour until it eventually says, listen, you can do it your way, or we can, make your hair fall out. We can stop you. We can slow you down, do all these things that will snap you into attention. I mean, do you credit the body with having that wisdom?
It's difficult to say, honestly, because I wasn't in my right mind. Not only was I not eating enough food to actually have the nutrients to think properly, but an eating disorder, it's not an illness of the body, it's an illness of the mind, right? Like it's a mental illness. So it's like asking someone, with depression, which I also struggled with, right? Like asking them to think maybe super clearly and consciously about their own worth. right, there can often be like a lot of kind of disconnect there between, their actual worth as a person, which is they are worthy, but in a mind that has been kind of plagued by feelings of inadequacy and self-blame and shaming and all that, which same thing with eating disorder, this, feeling of I'm not enough. And if maybe if I look that way, then I will be enough, but it never will lead to that. So it's just this kind of downward spiral. So I don't know exactly what that moment was. If there was like a little break in the clouds of connection to myself and like this being like, I need to again choose life, or, I don't know. All I know is that I'm so grateful that I had that moment, because my entire life, of course, it's been ups and downs. It wasn't like this, like perfectly like, and now I live in Lisbon. But like, you know, sometimes we have to have the breakdowns before we have the breakthroughs, right? We have to have those moments of like, wow, I'm really struggling and this really sucks, in order to get to where we're kind of meant to be and where we're wanting to actually go. And like letting everything kind of fall to the wayside and be like, I need help. For me, I know like asking for help was one of the most difficult things I've ever done, because I had spent my whole life just thinking if I have to be strong, I have to be independent, I have to be able to do this on my own. And asking for help is weakness, not realizing like asking for help was such a huge, huge moment of strength and courage. And so, yeah, it was a wild journey of ups and downs, but I know that vulnerability and asking for help was what really allowed me to connect, which was really the only thing I ever wanted.
Mm. And today, I mean, would you say, do you like yourself? Do you love yourself today? Where are you at?
I definitely like myself. I love myself a lot of the time, but not always. And I think that's just human. I have definite moments where I'm like, should I go back to like a corporate life and get it? I'm like, well, why? And it's always for me, like bringing back to the why, like, why would I want that? Why do I do that? And I think for myself, I'm very proud of myself for the journey I've gone on, very proud of myself for the risks I've taken to get myself to where I am. And my my life, I've been able to share that with others, and I'm able to connect with people and show them what can happen on the other side of recovery, because I was so afraid of recovering. Like I remember a psychologist said to me, she's like, if gaining 10 pounds is the difference between being happy, would you do it? And I was like, I'd rather be dead. Like I was just like, there's no chance I could gain weight and be happy. And so being, something for my younger self, or people also struggling in recovery, to look to for what is possible when that's no longer your whole world, is for me, it makes me feel so fulfilled and brings me so much joy when I get to live this incredible life and get to share this incredible life with others. So I like myself a lot of the time. I like myself all the time. I love myself most of the time. But understanding as well, like it's human to not feel in love with yourself all the time. I think it's a human to not, you know, to have moments of questioning and to have, again, negative emotions, right? When it comes to like emotions, like it's a contrast, right? We need to have the negative in order to feel the positive. So yeah, I think, I don't know if that answered the question, but
Yeah.
that's where I was going.
I mean, there's no, I mean, it's an answer. Yeah. I mean, there's no right or wrong. So it's whatever is relative, right? It's not, we're all different, thank goodness, and that's the key thing about it. It's always interesting. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of dialogue. Do you talk to yourself a lot? Is there multiple voices in there chatting away and keeping you company?
I mean, there's definitely like there's like, it's funny, there's definitely like a more negative one that is, if you think about like a car radio, it's like mostly turned down, but then some days it's like a little bit louder, especially if I haven't slept. Like for me, if I don't get enough sleep at night, like that negative voice is like super loud. That positive internal reflection, thinking about things, that's always on. Like that's just like always there, always like guiding me, always making me question things, which can sometimes be a lot, because I'm working on being more present in the moment. That's why I do things like meditation and breath work, because I definitely have that part of my brain that wants to analyze and understand everything. which is great, but can be exhausting. And again, drive some disconnection from your current reality because you're spending so much time analyzing it. So for me, like getting present, getting mindful through like, meditation or breath work has been so important for me to help kind of streamline that voice in my head, maybe shut it down a little bit sometimes, turn it down a little quieter sometimes. And then practice being more in the moment, more present instead of kind of, questioning a lot of things as it were.
It's always huge, isn't it? Because I mean, that voice in your head can't always, well, it rarely can be trusted, because it's your doubts, it's your fears, everything, right? It's your past, it's all there, and it's like a ringside narrator just chipping away there, and you're like going, hold on, who told you to say this, right?
Yeah. Wait a second. Yeah. And like the thing I learned as well is like not all your thoughts are true, which is
Mhm.
like a weird thing to think, but I used to believe like everything coming out of my brain was factual. And we think thoughts are true that we think the most often. And a lot of the thoughts that we think the most often are ones that have come from limiting beliefs in our brain that we thought to keep ourselves safe in that moment. They don't always serve us anymore, but we will often continue to think them and then create all this evidence to basically reinforce that limiting belief. So then I have a confirmation bias where, for example, if, when I was younger, like 5 years old, and I remember a group of my friends were asked to play with these older kids, and I wasn't asked to play because I was taller, I looked older, and they were being so sad and kind of create this belief like if I was smaller and cuter, then they would have asked me to play with them. And then all these basically situations that led forth in my life were just evidence to further support that claim. So when I thought the same thought of like, oh, that guy would like me if I was skinnier and cuter when I was like 16, right? That was just me repeating that thought from when I was like 5 years old with tons of evidence to now back it up, which means that I basically primed my brain to only look for evidence to support that situation. So now I have confirmation bias. I have these kind of like tinted rose glasses, as it were, to only look for that evidence to support it. So for me, like challenging those thoughts now, looking back and being like, was that actually true? Is that actually useful? Right. So maybe it was true all those years ago, but not really. But maybe in my younger brain it was. But does it actually serve me now to think this? Is it actually useful for me to believe this thought, or is it holding me back? And with thought work, right, like if we are shaming ourselves and berating ourselves, that doesn't lead to positive action, right? Shame in our brain actually triggers the same part as if we're in actual physical pain. When we're in physical pain, our brain wants to get away from that because it associates that with death. And so what it's going to do is it's going to try to help you self-soothe. It's going to make you try to feel better. So maybe that is drinking a lot of food, or drinking a lot of alcohol, or eating a lot of food, or gambling, or scrolling around on social media, whatever. And so it's usually driving the opposite of action of what we wanted to begin with. So for maybe you wanted to eat food that made you feel more nourished and empowered, but if you're blaming yourself and telling yourself you're a worthless piece of garbage, thinking that's going to motivate you to go get the salad, that's not what's going to happen. And so, negative thoughts lead to negative actions, positive thoughts lead to positive action. So for me, like my self-talk narrative has very much been geared towards the fact, like knowing that shaming myself and beating myself up is never going to get me to a place where I'm taking positive actions, which is what I truly want in my life.
Is that, I mean, all that realizing and sort of deciding to take sort of positive action and being mindful of your language, I mean, is that something that's come through your own journey, your development, and really sort of the mentoring and sort of outside of yourself? I mean, is that, or talk to me about that journey? Was that a decision for you?
Yeah. It's been a very conscious decision, but also again, very much understanding the why behind it. Because I thought the only way to become a better person was to point out all my flaws and focus on them in order to fix them. Not realizing that it was the beating myself up and only focusing on my flaws that was preventing me from actually moving forward and reaching my goals. So for me to understand, like when I give myself small hits of praise, like I'm really proud of myself for doing that thing. That was really tough. I'm actually giving myself a hit of dopamine. Dopamine is a renewable resource. It's in our brain, the neurotransmitter for the anticipation of reward and pleasure. And so if I'm giving myself these little mini praise, these little mini like high fives, as it were, I'm giving myself the energy to move forward. If I'm telling myself I'm garbage and I'm shit and I'm ugly and I'm fat and I'm stupid and whatever, I'm driving cortisol, stress, I'm driving norepinephrine, I'm driving adrenaline, I'm driving all the neurotransmitters, the hormones that are going to drive burnout. So I'm like driving the opposite of what I want. And again, that's going to trigger sort of part of our brain, that shame, pain, self-soothing. So for me, understanding kind of the science, a little bit behind talk, positive self-talk, was really important because, we could say good vibes only and speak kindly to yourself and rainbows and butterflies and, all that kind of stuff. But for me, it never clicked because I was like, okay, but why? Like, why would I do that? It sounds stupid when I was at that kind of space in my life. So now that I understand kind of the drivers behind why it's actually important to do that and how it's actually going to benefit me and get me to where I want to go, now I can actually implement that self-talk and realize like getting mad at myself, blaming myself, going to drive the opposite action of what I want. So it just doesn't serve me. Do I still have negative thoughts come up? Of course. Do I always believe them? Not always. Sometimes, yeah, if I'm super tired, if I haven't eaten enough, but I'm much better and more capable of challenging them and redirecting them because I know the negative ones aren't serving me. And then the more times I think, the more positive ones, the more times that gets reinforced, the easier it is to become because I have more evidence of that one.
I mean, are you able to catch that in yourself? Your own language or your tone or what's going on. I mean, are you able to self-reflect in that way and pick that up, or do you think it always takes someone else externally to almost to listen to your language because we're almost too close to it for ourselves? If that makes sense.
Yeah. It really depends on the day. I wish I could say like every day I'm really reflecting and like consciously catching it. But it's funny. I worked with a mindset coach years ago and I didn't realize it until I'd worked with him. But he's like, sometimes you get into these like really negative headspaces. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't know what it is. And then I was like, you know what? I think it has to do with my sleep. If I don't get enough sleep, I am so negative. My thoughts are so negative. I'm not able to catch them. I get into a really dark headspace. And so I remember messaging him. I was like, hey, if you notice I'm on like a really negative train of thought, in our work or whatever, could you just ask me how much I slept? Because I'm going to forget and it's definitely going to be what it is. And so, yeah, I would be, whatever, like, I don't know if I should be doing, maybe I should just go back to Canada, blah, 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 like, questioning, wondering, Victoria, how much sleep did you get last night? And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I got like 5 hours. Thank you. Like, it was like such a paramount shift. So it's like, like the halt, right? Like hungry, angry, lonely, tired. For me, tired is like one of the biggest ones. If I'm hungry also, I'm going to be super grumpy, super negative. So, if I haven't gotten enough sleep, I'm so much more gentle with myself. And I also don't believe my thoughts to be true. Like last night, I just got back on the train early this morning. I did not get a ton of sleep. And I was talking to my mom and I was like, oh, I miss my mom, miss my dog. Like, what am I doing? Should I be here? And I was like, okay, I definitely have these thoughts coming up. I know I've not gotten enough sleep. I know I'm tired. I know I need a shower. Like, I know to eat something. So like, let's come back to this tomorrow. Once you had enough sleep, you can really look at this. Like, do I want to stay here? Whatever. Do I want to try a new country? Should I go back to visit a family? But I know right now I'm not in a headspace where I'm thinking really clearly about it because I'm kind of know underlying that I'm hungry and I'm tired and haven't showered and I have a lot of calls today. So my head's not really in a good space to maybe, look at that and have a really good analysis. So I think when it comes to self-talk and like kind of catching it, being aware of what those things might be for you. So maybe it's like if you had a super long day at work, maybe you didn't eat enough or you had a fight with a partner, maybe that's not the time to take on big kind of questions about life and believe the self-talk that you're having to be true, but rather have in those moments being like, okay, noticing these thoughts coming up, I'm going to maybe not believe them to be true, write them down maybe, and then come back to them when I'm in a better headspace. So that's what I do.
I mean, if you're making big decisions or anything like that, do you tend to be more reactive? Are you impulsive, or do you like to take the time and, as you say, just to think on it or sleep on it? I mean, what's your modus operandi?
I'm definitely, it's funny. I'm not impulsive until I am, meaning I will think about something a lot. I will, like, for example, moving to Portugal, I'll be like, okay, do I want to live here? Going to do some research, going to look at this. And then once I make up my mind that I'm going to do it, it's like my plane is booked within like the hour. I've already messaged the visa. I booked my Airbnb. Like, it's like once I decide something, I'm like, full force ahead. I don't usually consult people. Like, I'm not someone who's looking outward to be like, should I move here? Should I not move here? Should I do this? Should I do that? I am someone who's like, nope, once I know what I truly want, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to look for external opinions. But yeah, it's, for me, it can be maybe a drawn out point of like, should I do it? Should I not? Which I need to probably expedite a little bit, because I think there's so much anxiety with indecision versus just taking actions. But for me, once I decide and make that kind of conscious decision, then I'm off to the races. I'm like on a flight tomorrow.
I think it's so interesting because I mean, with the I, the I being almost the introverted side, if that's correct. I mean, the I thinks about it, and then the the doing part becomes the my, the outgoing part that says, "Let's get this done," boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. So it's almost like the two parts saying, "The decision has been made, right? Please go execute." Sort of outgoing
Yeah.
side, my
Like,
side,
up
please.
to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the council
Yeah,
has spoken, therefore it is now.
totally.
It's off. It's fascinating, isn't it? The way the brain works, or really sort of what way we reflect on things. So, tell me, what are you capable of?
Mhm. That's a great question. I think that I'm capable of, just sounds cheesy. I think I'm capable of doing anything. The only thing that stops me is the thoughts that I can't do that thing. So the self-doubt, the questioning, like, I'm looking at PhD programs right now and I'm like, can I do that? Like, is this a good idea? Will I drop out? Will I not get through it? Will I have enough money to pay for it? Like, all those kind of thoughts creep in, but I have this like very strong sense of like, this is what I want to do. And so I think any human is capable of literally doing anything they want to do. It's just a matter of getting out of their own way, which the self-talk, the understanding the why you want to do the thing. For me, I actually had started my master's in economics years ago, and I didn't finish it. I did like a couple of weeks of it. And I was doing it not because I wanted to do it, but because I thought I should do it. I thought it sounded good to do it. So for me, like doing a PhD and like, whatever it is that you feel like you should be doing, or, you want to be capable of, as it were, understanding like, what is the reason why I want to do it? Like, what's the underlying driver? For me, I'm like, I just love researching. I love learning. I love understanding more about myself, understanding more about other people. And I just get so excited at the idea of like going back to classes and just like filling my brain with stuff. So yeah, I think that, yeah, I'm capable of anything. It's just a matter of getting out of my own way, which as the years have gone on, I've become better and better and better at.
Hmm. What is on the bucket list? What's on the goal list for you coming up that you're happy to share? I'm not wanting you to divulge everything, but I mean, just what's the sort of the big things that we're out there manifesting?
Yeah, I mean, I have a big bucket list. My bucket list right now is like, I'm writing a New York Times bestseller. I mean, it's not done yet, and I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm putting it out there and I'm saying it is. I also want to do a TED Talk one day. That's on my list of things to do. I'd love to do a TED Talk. Those are kind of like my two big main goals in terms of like more career aspirations, would be TED Talk and book. I mean, getting PhD as well. And then, yeah, as well, like more on the personal side, like I want to, yeah, meet someone, have a family, impart a lot of these really cool life lessons and learnings onto, yeah, my children. So that's on my bucket list, or my life aspirations, goals list, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, those are the big things. I think my bucket list, for a long time, my bucket list was this like thing that was like things I wanted to do, but never really seemed attainable because of what the limits I'd placed on myself. So now that nothing in my life seems very unrealistic, like everything seems like I could do that. I could go live there. I could go do that thing. It's funny, like my bucket list has become less of a forefront in my life, just because before it was kind of almost like a vision board of something that I wanted to do but could never quite do it, versus now it's kind of I live it. So it's like I took the train to Porto for the weekend. I stayed a few nights, and then I went to another place, and then I was in Bali for a few years. And like everything just seems like I can do these things, which means I don't have to think as conscientiously about doing them because it's possible. I don't know if that made sense, but
It does. I mean, that's well to be, yeah, to be conscious in terms of what we're doing,
Mhm,
and to doing what we do or love to do every day is
mhm,
powerful, very powerful in itself. And really, what's it all about, really? But what
mhm,
what are you what are you most proud of for yourself?
mhm. I'm so proud that that I'm alive. Um, I've someone who's had 3 suicide attempts in my life, age 16, then early 20s. And I literally it's like it's come up a couple times just in the past few weeks where I literally was just like walking down the street, like looking at the ocean. I'm just like, I'm just so happy to be alive. And I'm just really proud of myself for going through so much pain and so much sadness and like literally like crying myself to sleep every night for so many years, being like, what is the point? Like, it's not worth it. I can't do this. And, you know, just to be able to talk to my ears, like, just, the idea of like speaking to my 16-year-old self and just being like, like we fucking love our life. And like, we're so happy that we're still here and that, it all works out. And I'm just so proud that I didn't give up and I kept pushing because it was worth it. And that's, yeah, I feel like that's definitely what I'm most proud about.
Mm. And do you think, I mean, are you aware of what your purpose is in life? I mean, are you at that
Mm.
stage, do you think, or do you know what your calling is per se?
I think my calling is to help other people understand, fast track, and alleviate the pain that I once felt. Because I never want anyone to feel as alone or as broken as I did. And I've kind of made my life mission to make people feel understood and seen and heard, whether that be in eating disorder recovery or that be, in calls, my group programs where it's talking more about, just like connection and purpose and meaning and all that kind of stuff. So I think, however that kind of manifests in terms of whether or not I get my PhD or not, I think my purpose is the vulnerability, the empathy, the sharing, and helping people kind of unpack a lot of the why behind what they're doing so that they release that shame and become empowered in their life.
Mm. It's very, very powerful. It's a big thing. It's Yeah. I mean, there's so many people go through it. So it's an
Mhm.
amazing calling. Tell me, what's a bit of a guilty pleasure for you? Take the guilt out if you wish. I don't mind.
Yeah. I was like, let's not use polarizing language to demonize food. Uh, okay. I would say that's a great question because I guess I don't really categorize things as like guilty pleasures anymore just because like I don't restrict myself from pleasures. Um,
What do you treat yourself with? Put it that way.
Yeah, I love to take little getaways. Like I love to book a hotel for a few nights and take a train, or like when I was in Bali, I took my motorbike to this like beautiful resort for the weekend and just, yeah, just let myself be there and experience it and just be very present, and journal a lot and feel really grounded. So yeah, my pleasure, as it were, is going on these like little mini escapes, which I just got back from one of them today. So I just think it's amazing when you get to go new places and experience new things because not only do humans, we just operate so much in habit loops, right? We operate so much in just doing the same thing over and over again. We operate at the subconscious like most of our life. So when we go new places, if we're even just like sitting in a new seat at our desk at work, whatever, like around the table, we think new thoughts because we're out of our kind of familiar territory. And so what I love about exploring the world is that it's constantly helping me to evolve and change my worldview and change my thoughts and just gain new perspectives. And I just like, it just brings me so much joy when I get to be this like little kid on an adventure, exploring and like learning and seeing and being so present and so conscious and so mindful instead of kind of living in these habitual loops of not really truly being there.
Mm. And leisure and pleasure for you for that recharge. I mean, what does
Mm.
that look like?
Mm, I mean, I don't know how if you'd categorize this, but I love to CrossFit, and I find that like the best thing. Like I so much fun. I just completely, you don't think about anything when you're there. You don't worry about any problems. Like you're so in it. And to feel so connected to my body and feel so strong and like empowered, it just makes me so happy. It's like it brings me so much pleasure and so much joy. Um, I also have no expectations around how it's going to change my body or how it's going to make me look. Like I literally just do it because I love it. When I work with clients, it's like, intuitive movement. Like if it wouldn't change how your body looked, you still do it. For me, like it just makes me feel alive, makes me feel connected to my body, makes me feel empowered and strong. And I get to build community with other people there. So yeah, it's one of my most favorite things. Also mental health, like it's just like such a game changer when you're moving your body, makes me feel amazing. So yeah.
The secret to life, CrossFit. Didn't see that coming.
Secret to Life, sponsored by CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I love it. I mean, it's not for everyone. It's like some people find it a bit intense. I was an athlete my whole life. I played university volleyball on scholarship in the States. And so I've always had that like very competitive, like need for a bit of an outlet in that regard. And so CrossFit has like been this really great way for me to feel connected to my body, empowered, connect to other people in a kind of a community, for mental health, like moving my body, moving in the morning, like getting out of my room, having some structure. Yeah, it's been so amazing. So yeah, no mirrors too. So you're just in it.
Are you a little competitive?
Just a tad. It's like, it's funny. I used to be a lot more competitive. And I used to be really competitive with guys because I always like growing up, guys are always like, oh, we're stronger and better. And I was like always like the most feminist, like, no, I can do it too. Like a teacher would ask like someone to move a desk at school. They'd be like, I need a strong boy. And I'm like, why didn't you ask a girl? Like I could move the desk. So CrossFit is always fun because I love to show up the guys in CrossFit too.
That's it. Just don't take you on an arm wrestle. That seems to be the moral of the story. Oh, that's great. Love it.
I mean,
Tell me, if you were to try and describe your fire in the belly in one or two words, what would they be?
Fire in the belly. What would it be for me? When I'm talking with someone and you just are both on that same level and you're both like really connecting, and it's usually related to my work, but they get it. They have it like kind of like light behind their eyes, like aha moment, and they just like light up, and it just gives me it just gives me so much fire and so much excitement. It just makes me feel so alive. And I'm like, you get it, like you understand, like you releasing the shame and like acceptance and empowerment, and like it's just the coolest moments. And like I could just live off just like little snippets of those, which I do. I just like live for those little moments. They're so cool. So yeah.
Love it. Love it. Tell us, where can people learn more, track you down, hunt you down, stalk you, any of the above?
Yeah, so I hang out mostly on Instagram. So that is at Victoria Evans Official. I'm posting a ton of stuff there, a lot of tools and techniques and free trainings. So definitely come check me out there. Let me know you've listened to this episode. You can also find me on my website, www.victoriaevansofficial.com. All my programs are there. I have a lot of blog posts, free resources as well to check out. My podcast, Weighing In on Happy. So lots of bi-weekly bi-weekly episodes are coming out, as well as, oh yeah, I'm on TikTok. So that is at Victoria Evans Officially, LY, because that one was taken. So that's me.
Love it. And is there a final message you'd like to leave with our guests?
That you're not broken. I think so many of us have this idea that we're broken and need a fixing. And when we release this idea and start to embrace the one that we're enough as we are, we're just able to start to truly live and feel into our potential and show up in a way that is so powerful and meaningful. So yeah, just remind yourself you're not broken. Despite what all the magazines, social media says, you don't need to buy the product or do the thing. You're enough as you are. So
Love it. Love it. Victoria, it's been an absolute whirlwind and beautiful to hear, and all your experiences, what's been going on. I know we've only just tipped the surface, very likely. So, listen, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing, and listen, look forward to it, and well done. And we look forward to hearing more. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.